The third job involved stealing something. Wakako. Is this going to be a theme? Problem was I had to steal something from someone rich. I parked down the street from my target at a little shopping area, grabbed some dinner and looked at the skyscraper that my target lived in. This corpo was rich, had security, and owned a weird statue that my client wanted. I read through the mission brief again, shaking my head that I was literally stealing some fancy art piece for another rich guy to crow about. Problem? This was a secure building. Like Hiromi's home, but even more fancy. There would be serious security, including actual people to keep everyone out. So I needed to figure out a way through all of that, into the guy's apartment, find the object, steal it, and escape without any issues. I could do that. Probably. I walked past the entrance of the building, scanning everything inside and checking what the bottom floor security was like. It was tough. A receptionist, 2 LMG turrets hidden in the roof, and a camera over the receptionist's head. The building was pretty big though, it had tons of little shops on the bottom floor. Rather than rush in, I decided to actually look around, a walk around the block to scope out the area. There was a little alleyway cut into the side of the building with loading docks and garbage dumpsters. But it had a security camera watching over it. Of course. This is gonna be annoying, I muttered as I completed my circuit. I had a few options, but none of them were very appetizing. So I started poking. I walked to the alleyway and did something I hadn't used yet. I breached into the camera from afar using the breach quick hack instead of the direct function, then once its systems were under my control, I turned it off. With that done, I hid between a few dumpsters to see what would happen. If the security system was in any way well designed, someone would come out to check on the downed camera. Right? I breached their system, and I wasn't elegant about it. Surely it would send an alert to their security room and someone would come take a look. Right? An hour later I felt utterly irritated. What is this security? Their system gets hacked and they just ignore it? I got up and stomped towards the rear door. It had a keypad that I poked my cord into and started breaching. It popped open. Motherfucker, I hissed. This security was fake. It was Radio Shack level shit that someone had screwed in place to make the security seem tighter. It was like those old padlocks you could just smack with a hammer and have them pop open. The image of security more than the fact. I went cold as I stepped in. Fine, they have shit security, just makes my job easier. Even if I could still smell the trash I had been sitting next to for the last hour. The back room was a loading area probably for the entire building, and not just the apartments. It was also thankfully empty. With a few doors leading out, I started checking them. Broom closet, kitchen, main hallway. I could see the main street I had first walked up to the building from. And the elevators. I smiled as I walked out of the back room, no one even looking my way and the only camera in the area in the front room not even looking at the elevators. I pushed the request and it denied me. Stupid thing, needed a passkey. I thought about snooping around a bit. I bet I could find a few extra pass shards in the lobby or something, but I just pulled out my cord and plugged it in. The elevator opened up. When I finished this job I was going to send a complaint about this building's security. This wasn't even fun. I pushed the 8 on the touchpad, and waited as it took me up. The target had a private floor for his home, so once I was up there, security might be harder. Might actually give me a challenge. The elevator opened and I could already hear voices. The elevator opened into a small entrance lobby, with a single door leading into the apartment. I peeked out of the elevator, searched for cameras quickly before walking out of the elevator. Nothing. The door had a little code lock just like the building's back door. I frowned, sticking my cord inside. I breached. The door clicked open. I was glad I was feeling cold right then, because that was so dumb. You live in Night City. Why don't you have security? I slipped inside. 2 voices. A male and a female. Head on a swivel, I kept searching for any security. There was actually an HMG turret recessed into the floor in the first room. But it was off, and manually controlled from what my scan was showing. So I didn't have to worry about it unless the owner noticed me. I walked past it, started scanning everything looking for the object that Waikako's client wanted. Nothing in the front lobby. I slipped a peek towards the kitchenette. No, a bar. The apartment owner had company. I think that was a doll. Or a joy toy. She reminded me of Evelyn Parker from the game. Similar style, very neo-kitsch. Definitely an escort. I looked away, that should keep them busy for a bit. I slipped past the open door to the long hallway and started checking rooms. First room was a small office. A laptop called me, but it wasn't what I was here for. Next room was an entertainment room, a big couch, a large TV, even a BD wreath on a table. Guy liked his fun. But not my target. Stupid little statue thing. I had to slowly maneuver myself upstairs, thankfully just out of sight from the bar, and started checking the rooms up there. Interestingly, the first room I checked was a massive bathroom, like huge. A pool more than a bathtub. Instant jealousy. I wanted a massive hot tub bathtub. I pouted. I didn't even have time to look around it, no statue, so I slipped out to the next room. As I was about to open the door, I heard them. "Come on, Helena, let me show you something." I stood waiting. Were they coming up or staying on the ground floor? The moment I heard a footstep on the stairs, I got my answer. I slipped into the room I was about to enter and slowly inched the door shut, then I turned around. Fuck. Bedroom. I glanced around. I needed a hiding spot. Bed? No, it was a massive thing that was attached to the floor. Doors? Two, one definitely attached to the bathroom. I checked the other one, slipping into the closet. It was a walk-in closet, practically a room on its own. Tons of clothes on hangers and shoes. It smelled like a store. I just inched the door shut when the bedroom door opened. Giggling and whispered nothings. "Oh. You." I sighed silently as I heard the bed start creaking. This was going to be a while. It was not a while. 10 minutes later, both of them were breathless, although I could tell the joy toy was faking it, and they both got up and slipped into the bathroom. Thank fuck the guy didn't have a Mr. Stud. Once I was sure they were both in the bathroom and its stupid massive pool bathtub, I slipped out of the closet. The statue wasn't here. I slipped out into the hallway without a sound and looked around. Now that they were in one room, I could check around. It didn't take long. The statue was on a little cabinet in the room with the bar. I hadn't been able to see it from the entrance. I checked it for security. Nothing. I grabbed the damn thing and headed for the elevator, wanting to stomp the whole time. I was glad that was over. I pulled up to Jig Jig Street, having cooled off a bit. Seriously, how can they allow such poor security? I walked into Waikako's parlor, arms full of stuff, as I walked into her office. As usual, she was already waiting for me, her eyebrow raised as she saw my arms full. "Here is everything," I told her, placing the statue in front of her, along with the laptop, and a shard in a row. "Also, you would think better security systems would be important in Night City, but people really don't focus on it." I vented to Waikako. "Netrunners are required to stop another netrunner. Usual policy is to hire guards if you want something protected," she offered, surprising me as she actually responded to my whining. I blinked at Waikako's response. "Makes sense, I guess." "Good work," she finally offered, examining all 3 items on her desk. "Your death would have been a pointless waste. Don't allow yourself to be taken by surprise again. It's irritating to find someone capable of doing a job without bullets involved." "Thanks," she nodded, eyes suddenly glowing gold as a huge amount of eddies was dropped into my account. "Pay for the gigs, and the bonus for all 3. Get out of here, I'll let you know when I have another gig ready for you," she said, waving me off, but again I didn't run away instantly. "Thanks, Waikako. I'll make sure to be safe," I tell her with a smile, earning a scoff as she waves me off. Waikako didn't want to admit it, but she had actually seemed worried about me. Old dragon lady she might be, but she wasn't terrible. Probably. I flopped onto the couch at the Dojo Apartments, tired. "What have you been up to all day?" June asked quietly as he turned down the volume of the TV he was watching. The news, oddly enough. "Well, I went out to get some design software. I want to make some robot stuff. It's a long-term project. I picked that up, Then I ran into the Mox, which... Did I tell you about Nox? Nox? Is that a gang? No, not the... Nox is a Mox. Total nerd. I met him rescuing him from some jerks trying to steal the BDs he was trying to sell. I tell him as I lay on my back on the couch, my arms waving above me as I speak. Anyway, I hadn't talked to him since before the kidnapping, and I ran into a Mox girl that was annoyed that I had ghosted her friend. So I called him up, met up with him, and he offered me a gig. A kid selling BDs offering you a job? What does he want you to sell BDs to? Absolutely not. I opened my mouth. I closed my mouth. I knew exactly what it would sound like if I said what I was about to say. Twice already I had gotten to surprise people with it. I should rephrase it. I should be clear when I speak. But where is the fun in that? Third time's the charm. He wanted me to make BDs for the Mox and I agreed. I felt my lips twitching. Despite myself, not even Cold Blood 7 could stop me from almost laughing at the look on June's face. First it was a nod, like hearing me doing something other than merc work was good. Then his nodding head stilled as my words registered. No, he shouted, raising up and reaching out to grab at me. I let him, his hands wrapping around my shoulders. Absolutely not. I couldn't help it. The look on his face. I burst out into laughter, the noise absolutely ripping itself out of me, as June pinned me to the couch. I'm sorry, I laughed, practically crying as I felt June's hands loosen up, realizing I was messing with him. Don't joke about that stuff. Sorry, I gasped, deep breaths, finally seeing June's angry face through my tears as I wiped them away. It's kinda true though. Just said in the worst way possible. I'm going to be recording BDs while I am doing mercenary gigs. Basically when I work with Wakoko, who is a slave driver by the way. She threw 3 gigs in my face today. I had to do all 3 of them back to back. What do you mean, recording BDs? Focus on the important part, Emoto, he demanded, shaking me a little, making me giggle. Alright, sorry, anyway, the idea is to sell BDs of me doing merc stuff, like XBDs but cleaner. No cyber psycho stuff that everyone buys, but just clean gigs, giving people a taste of what it's like. I mean, I'm a teenager, so the hope is that kids will be interested in it. He stopped whatever he was about to say. Just be careful about that. If someone finds out you were the one to rob them, or kill their buddy, they might. Yeah. I've been thinking about that. I'm gonna talk to Judy. Judy is the Mox's BD maestro. About making sure any direct visuals of me are left out. Let people just feel what it's like. I wonder, can you mess with a BD so any reflections would look like the user's face? June gave me a look before flicking my forehead. Do I look like I know anything about BD editing? But you should ask, if that's possible, it'll keep you a lot safer, he said, and pulled me up from where I was laying on the couch to pull me into a hug. I snuggled in a little, liking the affection even if his arms still sucked. You really need to get some real skin. Go see Vic. I grumbled at him, poking him in his stupid plastic abs, which of course didn't do much. His arm clamping down on me until I could barely breathe in retaliation. Jerk, I gasped out. Ah, if only my Emoto was cute. Beak, adorable. I countered, barely audible as I struggled to get away from his stupid gorilla arm. Stupid gorilla. Finally he let me go and I kicked him a few times before we settled back in to hang out and watch the news. Considering I was all caught up on Wakoko's jobs, I had some time on my hands. I found myself tapping my fingers together, considering revenge. It feels good, satisfying, to do harm to someone that harmed you, but it's not an easy thing to do. I still wanted that Spider Ripper to die. That Maelstrom bastard needed to lose a few of his limbs. But how much effort was I going to give to them? How much of myself was I going to give over to the task of hunting them? If I had asked myself before the adaptation, I wouldn't have even listened, just made plans to keep killing them. I was so angry. So hurt. The adaptation didn't fix me. Didn't fix the problem. I still had that burning hatred in my stomach. Yet. I breathed in and out. I wanted to live. I wanted to have fun. I wanted to be lazy sometimes. Revenge was surprisingly tedious. You had to keep that burning hatred lit at all times, Because if you started letting it burn out, you started realizing it was kinda pointless to be that obsessed. So yes, I would hunt that Spider Ripper. And the bastard. I would murder them. Hell, I would torture them, if I had the time. Because in the end I'm not a hero. Not a good person. But I wouldn't exist to do it. I wouldn't spend my life around killing them. They had already taken my arms. They wouldn't take my life. With that I nodded. It was enough. Something I could accept. That caused that urge to go kill Maelstrom to ease off. To let other things take the stage. So since I didn't feel like murder right now, I decided to settle in and work on some skills. With my CAD program, and a laptop that I removed any remote access from by physically tearing out the Wi-Fi connections, I had an off-the-grid system that I could pull up Arasaka's CAD system. Then I learned that just because I have some knowledge about engineering, doesn't mean I'm any good at it. Robotics Wizard helped a little despite being more about putting together robots. But even then, that's not gonna work. I grumbled at myself, looking at the Tashikoma prototype design. If I actually built this, I would have to immediately put it out of its misery. I told myself as I grimaced at just how bad it was. Designing a robot was complicated. At least I was getting engineering alerts really consistently from it. So I went back to the drawing board. Let's just work on a limb to start us off, I muttered as I designed to narrow my focus for a bit. The triple-fingered Tashikoma limb, that could shoot and extend out, was impossible considering I wasn't building a SUV-sized armored support system. Instead I was thinking a bit smaller to start out. I still remember how useful the flathead was in the game, even if you only get it for the one mission. What would some of the missions be like if you had a small army of them that were also AI? I hadn't considered that problem yet. I could probably design a remote control version of them. Eventually. But an AI? I didn't have a lot of knowledge on how to even design one, but I knew the hardware requirements of an AI were crazy high. I mean, Delamain's AI was housed in a massive room-sized core. A robot that didn't even reach my knees couldn't possibly reach that point. Even if I programmed the AI to be incredibly efficient. Motoko. June suddenly called out, pulling my head away from the screen as I peek up over the couch where I had made a little nest for myself. Jun-me. There is another raid tonight. You can come. He told me, hesitating a bit at the reveal. I blinked. I didn't want to go murder Strom right now. I wanted to design robots. Stupid June. But at the same time, I could use the XP, and my head was clearer. I didn't need to rush in and kill every Strom myself. Even if it's only a kill or two, that's still making an improvement. Levels will come. Then I remembered. Sure. I'll bring my Nekomata. I called out suddenly eagerly. I could shoot tons of people through walls while the kamikaze ran around like bulls in a china shop. June actually suddenly looked pleased. Good. Get ready, he ordered, pointing firmly as he turned away, looking pleased. I guess June was happy to keep me away from the fight. But he was silly. I would have happily stayed home tonight. I really should have stayed home tonight. We had gone out to hit a Maelstrom attack. Apparently, someone had managed to get information that the Strom were going to hit a Tiger Claw business, specifically a little gun shop that supplied quite a few Tiger Claws with firearms. So kamikaze was sent to take out the attack. What that entailed was everyone piling into 4 cars in a nearby alley and being as quiet as possible as we waited. Which meant putting a group of budding cyberpsychos into close proximity to each other with the anxiety of future conflict. I was with June and Akari again, and just with that, I was ready to kill someone. Akari was getting snippy. June was surprisingly handling his anger really well. Honestly, he was handling Akari poking him with her sharp feet, or continuously trying to turn on the radio over and over, despite all of us supposed to be quiet, really well. I, however, was not. Akari kept pushing her passenger seat back into me, and whenever I moved behind June she would start trying to poke me with her feet blades. I was half a minute away from bashing my Nekomata in the back of her head to get some peace, when both June and Akari stilled. I glanced around the seat, both of their eyes were yellow. I rolled my eyes at not being included and just leaned back. June would tell me what the call was about. All right, the Maelstrom trucks are a minute out. Get ready, Jun said, and I nodded. Then I instantly opened the door to Jun's shock. Motoko? He whispered at me as I climbed out. I'll be on the roof. I'll wait for you guys to start attacking before firing. I tell them, pointing to the old buildings we were parked between. I could get up onto the roof and have an overwatch position. If you were willing to do a couple of tricky leaps. I stuck the Nekomata over my shoulder and rushed away before Jun could say anything else. I was honestly needing my own space. Akari was fun in short doses. Short doses. I tightened my gloves as I started climbing up the building, sliding from a dumpster to an AC unit, then along the window ledge to jump to the next floor, where I grabbed an overhand and climbed up with a bit of effort. Parkour made it a simple process of just pulling myself up after a jump. Each jump and leap climbing me higher and higher in the shortest time. Then I was on the roof, and I hurried to overlook the Tiger Claw shop. Crouching up to the edge, I pulled off my Nekomata and started checking it over. Gun Nut already told me it was fine, but knowing, and knowing, are two different things. Loaded, with the safety off, I rose up, having already chosen the best place to keep myself completely out of view. A shade from a sign put me entirely into shadow, and the brick I was pushed up against was colorful from graffiti, so I would be invisible without a lot of attention. I eased my eye over the scope. I could hear them. The Maelstrom trucks were old beaters, hyper-tuned monsters, or just loud. Loud and driven angrily. They came around the corner in a mess, two of them even scraping against each other as they took the turn too sharply, but neither driver seemed to care. The cavalcade roared down the street, stopping around the shop, the Maelstrom actually managing an okay semicircle around it, to isolate it. I waited. Kiroshi already scanning the gangsters. My NCPD file search letting my scan not just tell me what the Strom were using for weapons, and some of their cyberware, but also their rap sheet. The more I scanned, the more I smiled. Cleaning up scum was a duty to all lovers of peace and justice after all. I scanned them as I waited, nothing really surprising popping out. Murder, kidnapping and illegal squatting. But I waited. The Maelstrom Borgs were hollering as if they already won, as they stepped out, a few guns firing into the air, or into the front of the shop seemingly just for fun. I waited. And then finally, as the door opened, it happened. The first Borg to try and enter got ripped apart as an HMG began firing from within the building. Instantly the Maelstrom jumped for cover and started firing back into the store. The forceful response more than the Borgs expected. Which is when I saw them. Kamikaze, rushing in headfirst from behind. I sighed as I kept both eyes open, one through the scope, and one without as I watched, waited. The first Maelstrom to notice the enemies at his back and turn around, was my target. His shotgun was raised. I exhaled, a stream of what felt like freezing air escaping my lips. It was so easy. My scope was already adjusted for range. My arms held perfectly still. I couldn't design a better weapons platform than my own body at that moment. I pulled the trigger. The Borg lost his head, his shotgun falling out of his hands as his body followed, bleeding out across the pavement. I specifically ignored the alerts coming through, making sure they wouldn't be caught on the BD I was scrolling. I shifted. My firing had unfortunately caused a few of the Maelstrom gonks to turn around hearing the rifle, but Kamikaze were on them now. Jun just behind Fujimura. Katana blazing red as he leapt over the back of one of the pickups, cutting down the Maelstrom gonk that was standing up on the bed, and then putting himself into the group. But I was Overwatch and I saw everything. The Kamikaze gonkhead that hadn't properly checked his ass and didn't notice the driver of one of the trucks step out and start aiming at his back. The Kamikaze was punching a Borg into scrap despite the body being quite dead. Hazards of cyberpsychos, I supposed. Then I fired. The driver slammed face first into his truck's rear door. As my round burst through his chest, he slipped to the pavement without resistance. I shifted again. It was funny. I rarely tended to use rifles, but with all of my skills and perks, they did synergize well. I fired again. The gonk that Fujimura was wrestling with had been just as big as the angry Kamikaze leader. They had tangled on the floor, each trying to rip the other apart with their cyberware and strength. I had a clear shot and took it. The maelstrom's spider-like head came apart in two, splattering Fujimura in white Borg blood. I moved on, uncaring that I could see Fujimura's angry glare looking towards me. But instead of firing, I dropped. A barrage of bullets slamming into my previous position, I rolled along completely unbothered by the stone shrapnel as I kept the Nekomata closed. Chrome arms made rolling on the ground surprisingly painless. The burst of automatic fire was pulled away, but that was all I needed. As soon as it stopped, I sprung up, jogging sideways along the edge of the rooftop, stealth no longer needed, lining up the shot. The Gonk that had just shot at me, while still distracted as he was being shot at, noticed and started aiming towards me. Too slow. I fired. The fucker ducked away just in time, his own response wildly missing even when mine punched a quarter-sized hole into the side of the truck he was now taking cover behind. I didn't wait. My hands already dancing, as I grabbed another magazine from a hip pouch, dropping the empty magazine, and slamming the new one home. I was already aiming, and once I stabilized from the reload I fired. Punching through the truck, and the moron that thought a few bits of car siding would stop a tech sniper rifle. I didn't stop moving, instead focusing on my next target, but it was already over. Kamikaze were tearing the last few Maelstrom members into pieces. A quick look over the battlefield to make sure no one was playing dead, and I nodded. Mission complete. I threw the Nekomata over my shoulder, taking a moment to scope out my path, and leapt off the side of the building. Landing on a sign, I slipped off that to another lower sign, and then onto a ledge of the building, then simply stepped off and landed on the concrete. I exhaled. That felt good. I took a moment to glance at the alerts after I shut off the BD scrolling. Looking through the list of alerts, very pleased with what I saw. 500 XP gained. 100 assault XP gained. 100 assault XP gained. 500 XP gained. 100 assault XP gained. Assault skill level up. 1 perk point gained. 1000 XP gained. 100 assault XP gained. 500 XP gained. A new perk. Yay. I would have to check on that later. For now I focused on the scene around me. I jogged up, noticing the Kamikaze were twitchy, all of them looking for more bloodshed. I ignored their glares and wandered up to June. You okay, Jun-ni? Get hit at all? I asked, already reaching for my medical pouch, but he waved me off. Nothing my subdermal didn't catch, he mentioned, as I looked towards his plastic abs. A ragged scrape cut through the flesh, but I could see it was only skin deep. The bullet ricocheted. Ow! That still looked painful. You sure? I got a max doc, got some painkillers, I mumbled, pulling out some stuff I had picked up at the random pharmacy I had stopped at before all of this. I don't feel it. I have a pain editor, he told me with a shrug, and I had nothing on that, just nodding. Even if my fingers twitched to tie a bandage around it. I looked around at the carnage then. The 20 or so Maelstrom Borgs were torn to pieces. Blood dripped and ran down the road. A few of the Kamikaze were injured, only one seriously. A shotgun had clipped one of the female members. She was down an arm, but otherwise fine. A visit to a Ripper and she would be right as rain. Funny how combat was in the future. Vicious bloody affairs. A few vans roaring down the roads had me twitching, but the Kamikaze around us waved them forward and they stopped. Instantly tiger claw grunts jumped out of the back of the familiar moving vans. It was like the ones Ichi had borrowed for the Scav raid. No. I blinked, feeling the cool dryness of my Kiroshi. Not like the vans. The same van, because they're in the driver's seat, which I could only make out due to my Kiroshi was Ichi. June, I'm gonna go see how Ichi is doing. You alright? Huh? Oh, you're Chum. Go on, I'm fine. Stop hovering. He ordered, waving me off, but it was in a joking manner that made me smile as I threw him a thumbs up and ran up to the van. Happily jumping up onto the door and sticking my crossed arms onto the rim so I could stick my head in. Long time no see, I cried out instantly, causing Ichi to yelp like a girl and scrambled around as he tried and failed to fumble a gun out of his holster. Motoko? You should either practice the draw a bit more, or store a gun somewhere you can grab easily, I informed him with a grin, as the boy sighed out all of his air and seemed to check his heart. Please don't do that. These jobs are tense. Why? All the Maelstrom gonks are dead. Yeah, maybe. They aren't always, and reinforcements are a thing. Well, then you should definitely work on that drawer. How you been, Ichi? I haven't heard from you since. Well, since the war heated up, yeah. Motoko. Is that Chrome? He asked, blinking in shock as he took in my arms resting on the door. Yeah. I got klepped by the Maelstrom. They were trying to draw out June. Apparently he killed enough of the Strom to make a mark. Klepped? Again? He asked, looking horrified. Yeah. Right outside the apartment. Shot me up, and cut off my hands. I waved my hands a bit, wiggling the fingers. It really sucked. They took me to this pit fight thing. Well, I don't really want to talk about it. Eventually June got enough people together to come get me. I was alive. Mostly. I'm fixed up. Mostly. I admitted, actually feeling my voice go a little heavy at the end there. He looked me over for a moment, nodding. You're strong. You'll be okay. But if you need anything, we are still chums. I smiled at that. What else could I do? I didn't really have many chums. Thanks, Ichi. Where is Malcolm anyways? I thought he was your co-pilot while you worked? Malcolm bailed. We got shot up a few nights into everything. Neither of us got hit, but one of the guys in the back got torn up. Malcolm tried to stabilize the guy, but it didn't work out. He took it hard. He's been staying home ever since. I frowned a bit. I wasn't really close to Malcolm, but he was part of our little kiddie gang. I should call him, or visit maybe? Ichi looked surprised at my question. You would do that? Of course. I'm not really close to you or him, or Omaida, but you guys are still my chums. You've known me since before the coma, right? And we were a little pack of troublemakers. I got to look out for you guys, or at least offer an ear. Honestly, something I probably should have been doing before. I've been a little self-focused, ignoring making friends or my old chums. Ichi was quiet for a moment before he smiled. Malcolm would like that. Really? How about you then? The Tiger Claw loot recovery job doing well? I asked, putting on a teasing smile as he chuffed a bit. Honestly? You paid better. I cackled at that, both of us breaking into laughter. Well, maybe I should hire you full-time. I hit this Maelstrom place the other night, and with everything including June showing up tracking me down, I had to leave so much loot. I was so sad. I told him as I plopped my chin down on the door. Leaving loot behind is wrong. Well, obviously you need to hire a professional loot recovery agent. Unfortunately I'm all booked, he said, giving the length just long enough to get my hopes up. Mean. So you and the kamikaze? You know those guys are cyber psychos? No, I totally missed that, and thought they were all perfectly reasonable people, I said tonelessly, managing to draw a snort from him. Well, be careful. They are useful and effective, but all the guys that work with them tell horror stories. Sometimes they go off on the retrieval guys. I can see it. I nod, thinking on the few times that they seem to start losing it. But I just gotta keep an eye on June. He wasn't in a good place. Well, you gotta stick with your brother. I never would have thought they would let you in though. You have to be seriously chromed up for them to even consider. I'm not joined, I'm more like a ghost that follows June around. That's all. PFFT. Yeah, more like an Onryo, he joked, and it took me a moment to remember what that meant. Hey. I don't crawl out of TVs. And my hair is nice. He just shook his head at me, smiling, which earned him a light tap on the shoulder, that he winced and rubbed. It was only a baby tap. With my chrome knuckles. Ow. I'm sorry. I didn't hear about the kidnapping thing. I just thought you were busy doing crazy shit again. I should have reached out, he mumbled after a while of silence between us. I was under a jammer for a long while. But I should have reached out and checked on you too. I visited Hiromi, but I didn't even call. Sorry. Not much of a chum, I guess. Hey. You're better than you used to be. Scarier, funnily enough, even if old you was more interested in being intimidating, but you manage it better. Interesting. Really? How would you describe old me? I asked. I hadn't really gotten much from anyone about how I used to be. Who I used to be. He hesitated for a bit but shrugged. Listen, I liked you, we were chums and we got into trouble together, but you were kinda a bitch. You got us into so much trouble that we could have avoided by just not starting shit. Wow. Hiromi never mentioned that. She wouldn't. Hiromi has always been never mind. Look, your brother is trying to get your attention. He instantly switched topics, pointing. As interested as I was in what he had been about to say, I turned and saw June waving for me. Well, he is my current ride, so I better Delta. Keep in touch, Ichi. We are still chums. Same to you, Motoko. I nodded as I jumped off and hurried after June. Girl. You are coming too, Fujimura demanded as we all piled out of the cars. I had been heading back towards the apartment to put up my equipment, and probably clean my Nekomata, but Fujimura had suddenly called out, specifically at me. After action report? Yeah. Guess Fujimura-sama wants you there. You must have done well. June offered with a smile as Akari suddenly poked her head in between us. Or terrible. Maybe he'll cut you up for messing up so bad? I don't think I messed up. I told her as we walked, but she was quick to run in front of me and walk backwards, which seemed to take some effort with her feet blades. Ooh, but you ran off. Fujimura-sama hates when people do something he didn't tell them to. Motoko is intruable. She mocked as we reached the window that let us into the dojo area. Shut up, Akari. June grumbled at her, but then we were there, in the downstairs area of the dojo. With the couches and little plastic chairs arrayed around Fujimura that stood. Another injury, pathetic. He growled out as he looked over the people. Injuries are expected, serious injuries are not. If you are incapable of not losing a limb, then get better chrome, or die so someone more skilled can use yours, he demanded, pulling no punches. Also, wow. What an asshole thing to say. Girl, he said, suddenly pulled me away from my thoughts. I was standing behind June, who was sitting on one of the plastic chairs in the circle. Yes? You nearly shot me tonight, he said bluntly, and I couldn't help but wonder what the hell he was talking about. No, I didn't. Your bullet passed less than a foot from my head. Yeah? It didn't come anywhere close to you. I mean, I'm not a crack shot or anything, but at that range? I could probably get the round to kiss you if I wanted. I replied, getting a little grumbly. This guy was such an asshole, and I was kind of sick of it. He looked me over before nodding. Kamikaze don't have a marksman. That skill set doesn't tend to come hand in hand with our purpose. Kusanagi. Your sister is acceptably useful. You didn't waste our time having us save her. He offered and then just turned away and started squeezing everyone through the ringer on their fuck-ups. June and I both weren't exempt. Apparently I fired too slow. Well, yeah. I only had assault 5. I wasn't going to shoot any faster. I might friendly fire. Well, I could still level it up some more. It was fun. By the time I settled onto the couch that night, blanket pulled up to my chin and ready for a sleep to get the muscle pain in my back to go away, I had a thought. Wait. Does he think I'm a member now? But I'm not a cyber psycho.